Hi, and welcome back to Erin Makes Designs, where today I'm going to show you how to make this very quick and simple positive carrot using your 22-pin circular knitting machine. Let's get going. To make the little positive carrot, you will need a 22-pin circular knitting machine. This one here is the Addi Express Professional by Addi, but you can use any make you like. Some Aran worsted weight yarn. This is Caron Simply Soft in Chartreuse and Neon Orange, as well as a DK Sport Weight yarn. This is in cotton that I like to use for embroidery. Some polyfill or filling of your choice, darning needle, pair of scissors, and some push pins for holding your work together, and a little tag. You'll see down in the captions that I have a link to my email list where if you sign up, I will send you a pack of puns for the carrot that I have put together. Okay, let's get going on our leaves for the carrot. The carrot is made up of 3 tubes, 2 in green, which will be 5 rows each, and 1 longer tube in the orange, which will be 25 rows. Now, I always reset my counter once I've cast on. Now, there's a common problem that we encounter with the 22-pin machine, quite often with the Addi Express. I don't believe it's a flaw of the machine. I think it's physics. I have an entire YouTube video that you can see that talks about why I think it happens and how I fix it. I won't go into that now, but I'll just show you what I do to fix it. Here, you will see that the yarn will lift up. As it starts to pull tight, it will lift up and snag or split across these pegs. What I do is I just have my darning needle ready. When that happens, I just come in and lift the yarn up and over the peg. It's really quick and easy. It doesn't happen on every peg, and it only happens in the first few rows. So I'll just go along doing that. And then once it has stopped, I'll just be able to crank along as fast as I like. There we go. And now I'm going to make 2 tubes of 5 rows each. There we go. There's our first tube. I'm just going to do a basic cast off. I like to put the first 5 or 6 stitches off the machine, and then I go around and just pick up as many as I can at once. And there we go. We have our first leaf, which is made up of 5 rows. I will put the row counts down in the caption for you as well. Right, I am going to cast on and knit my next leaf. You might like to pause the video here, and I'll see you when I have it finished. Right, that's my 2 leaves knit. They were 5 rows each, and now I'm going to cast on and knit 1 longer tube of 25 rows for the body of my carrot using this Neon Orange by Caron Simply Soft. I'm not going to make you watch me with my cast on and my knitting and my cast off. You've already seen me do that. So you can pause the video here, and I will see you when you have your 25 rows knit for the tube and you have cast off. We have our 3 tubes made. We have our 2 leaves, which are 5 rows each, and we have our carrot body, which is 25 rows. Let's get going on our leaf. To make the leaf, I find it too wide to leave the tube like this, and so I want to narrow it. And it's very easy to do. We're just going to fold it in half. Your tails, you'll want to make sure that you have pulled them nice and tight to cinch the ends closed, but you don't need to worry about tying these off because that will happen as we sew the sides together using our tails. And that's one of the nice things about leaving tails that are long enough. You can use them in your sewing. I'm going to use mattress stitch, which is my favorite stitch to use to join pieces from the outside because it leaves an invisible or a near invisible seam. To begin, you are going to find the column of stitches that you will sew together on each side. Now, when in our knitting we have what are called rows, and that is where your stitches line up side by side, and we have columns where your stitches are on top of each other. And so we are going to stitch together our one column to the next. It's important to stay to the same column so that you don't start twisting your work. If you start picking up stitches elsewhere from different parts of your piece, then you will find that your work will begin to bunch up, won't look very neat. So I'm going to use this column here, and I'm going to stitch it to this column here. To begin, I'm going to bring my tail up and out through the middle of that first stitch, and then I am going to pick up the bar that comes between the legs of the next stitch up. And then I'm going to come across to the other column on the other side, and I'm going to do the same thing. I am going to pick up that bar. And I'm going to go back and forth doing the same on each side. Now, some people, when they mattress stitch, they like to pick up 2 bars at a time. You can do that. I prefer to pick up 1. It keeps me making sure that it's nice and neat. But of course, it's obviously faster to pick up 2. So you do whatever you like. You'll notice I am not pulling my yarn tight as I am doing my mattress stitch. I'm leaving it loose. And that's because if I pull it in tight while I'm working on it, then the stitches that I need to work into, it's harder to find the bar. So if you keep it nice and loose, and we'll pull that tight at the end. And I'm almost there now. There we go. And now I'm just going to pull that to bring the sides together. I always like that. Feels like magic. And there we have a nice closed seam. And I'm going to bring this tail through to meet up with the tail that was down at the bottom there. And I'm going to tie a nice secure knot. Don't pull it too tight. If you pull it too tight, it might start to pull this end inwards, and your leaf won't look as neat. Once you have your knot tied, then you can thread your other tail onto your needle, and we are going to hide the pieces in the work. Really easy to do. All you have to do is bring your needle back in and bring it out, making sure that you are not coming through your yarn and splitting it. You want to come between your stitch. Pull the tail out, give that a quick snip, and there we go. We have our first leaf done. It's a little bit untidy there. That's okay, because when I sew my pieces together, that will be hidden. So that's all right. I'll put that down, and you can pause the video here and rejoin me when you have made both of your leaves, and we'll begin the construction of the carrot. Let's begin making the body of our carrot. You'll see that the carrot has a nice tapered shape to it, and it got that because I did a little bit of shaping here at the back, and you can see where this seam runs along there. And so that's what we are going to do now. You may have to your tube one side that has a longer tail than the other. That's the tail you want to be using. If you happen to have short tails, then you'll want to cut yourself something a bit longer, because we're going to use it to seam up the back. Again, we don't need to tie off the closures at the ends, because that will happen as we do our seaming. What I like to do is to make sure that my tube is sitting nice and flat. I don't know how to describe that, evenly. I do that by just making sure that I have a nice column that's coming down one side, and when I come over to the other side, equally, I have a column of stitches that come down that side. And this is where we're going to be using our straight pins to help us. And we will fold our tube in half. But I think what I'll do is I'll just use my straight pin there for just now to hold that together. Down at this end is where I'm going to do the shaping, and I want to fold in about a third of the way. So for those of you who fractions are a bit scary, a third is if we split this tube into 3 pieces, so there's one piece section here, one section there, one section there, I'm going to come up about a third of the way. So one section is where I'm going to fold over the tube like this. And I will get myself another straight pin and pin those 2 sides together. I don't want to be going through to the front of my piece when I'm stitching. I am just stitching these sides together. And I can undo that one now, because as I come up to about a third of my piece, that's when I will then switch to be just stitching each side together like we did with the leaf. Let's get going. And again, just like we did with the leaf, I'm going to find a column of stitches I want to be following on this side. And because we are shaping it, it's not going to stay to the same column on the other side. If we did that, then we would just have a tube that's just folded in half, and we wouldn't have that nice tapering. We're working on a diagonal, and that's okay. So again, I am going to come up through the first stitch that I want to be working into, find the bar, pick it up, and I will come over now to the other side and find a stitch, I think this one, pick up its bar, come back to the column I will be sticking to, there we go, and come over to the other side, find another stitch and its bar, and I'm going to make my way back and forth, just finding bars between the stitches. Go into that one next. It's not an exact science, this. As I'm doing it, I'm thinking in my head, how can I explain to you exactly what I'm doing? And I don't really think I can. You're just going to go back and forth, finding stitches that are all near to one another, but remembering on the original side, the side you started on, stick to that same column. Just going to take that pin out so I can see the stitches in the column that I'm working into. I hope you can see that. And then over here, and I think this is going to be the last one in the tapering. Just have a look to see. Let's pop. I'm going to fold the side out because I will come back to join up those sides together. And let's turn it over. I think that's quite good. That's the tapering there that we'll see when we are finished. And I'm just going to pull that tail tight now, so I can have a look to see if I'm happy with that. Okay, and what we're going to do now, sticking to that same column which has folded under, I'm going to work back on a diagonal until I can meet up with my side and work up the side. So I'll pick back up the bar there, and I'm coming back over, there we go. Let's see, I'll pull that one tight. So unlike the leaf, we're not waiting until the end to pull everything, because we need to see in this shaping where we are. I think I'm ready to bring it together now. I'm going to do just a few stitches back and forth, and then I will stop and add some filling. So let's see if I can identify. Here's the column. This is the column I'm going to work into on that side of the carrot, and this is the column I've been working into the entire way up. I hope that didn't come out of frame. It's something to get used to, working under a camera instead of just having the work sit directly in front of me. I noticed in some of my other videos, I tended to come a little bit down in the recording, so I'm really making an effort today to not do that. Right, pull that a bit. Okay, before I go any further, I'm going to want to fill this bottom half of my carrot with my filling. When filling your work, the first thing I do is I always like to tease apart the filling so that I don't get any lumps. There we go. You want to make sure when you are filling your work that you are filling it the right amount. You don't want to have too much stuffing in there that your stitches become all stretched out. And you don't want to have not as much stuffing as you need, or else it'll start to look floppy. So you really have to pay attention to that. And then the nice thing is that you can always we haven't finished anything, you can take some away or you can add some as you need it. Right. I think that's nice and firm, and we can continue now seaming our sides closed, going from one bar and back to the other. And again, if you want, you can pick up 2 bars at a time, but I'm just going to stick to one. If this is your first tutorial of mine that you've seen in my Positive Fruit and Vegetables series, I also have at this moment in time a positive pineapple, a lemon, and some peas. And I will be adding to this series as I design and film new patterns. I think these are quite cute ideas that are great for selling at markets, or if you don't sell at a market, that you can make to give away to friends and family, or to leave on your desks, on your desk, to keep yourself cheered up. They're really sweet when they're all done. Or to leave out for people to find as random acts of kindness. I'm just going to pull that, and you'll notice each time I kind of give it a tug downwards. This is to make sure that the yarn hasn't pulled up all of my the seam that I've just made too tight in different areas. Hope that makes sense. And I'm just going to check my stuffing to see how it is. And we still have that opening there. Wiggle it about a bit. And now I'm going to, before I come to the top to finish it off, I'm going to add a little bit more. I've just joined a Facebook group where it's random acts of crochet kindness. And it's really wonderful to see what people make and just leave out as little gifts. It's looking a little bumpy. There we go. Oh, I'm really happy with the shape of that carrot. It's a perfect grocery store shape. Not the really beautiful wonky ones that we grow in our gardens. I used to, when my children were little, I used to grow vegetables and fruit for them. But then they decided they just didn't want to eat them anymore. And it felt like it was a great lot of effort. So I stopped doing it. But now that they're older, they want to start growing vegetables again. You know, when they go through that really fussy age when they're little. You can't convince them to eat anything because it just looks the wrong way or had just slightly different taste than they were used to. So I've told my son that now, that next summer, if he wants to grow fruit and vegetables, I will certainly help him do it. But I won't be putting in the bulk of the effort. Okay, we're all the way up at the top, and just like we did with the leaf, you're going to bring your tail through to meet up with the other tail, tie it in a secure knot. Remember, don't pull it too tight because you don't want to pull that seam that you've just created. Go. Pop it back onto your needle. and we will hide those tails inside our work. And this is the nice thing about the carrot, is it just has the 3 pieces to make. Snip off those ends. I like to keep all of my ends for using when we sew up our work. And there we go. So you should have a nice tidy seam that goes all the way up your work to create yourself your tapered carrot shape. Now that we have our carrot made, we're going to move on to attaching our leaves. It's important that you identify where the front face of your carrot is. My seam is here, and so I'm just going to use a little pin to mark off where the front is, just so I can keep myself straight when it comes to sewing on the leaves, because you will have a side of your leaf which is nice and tidy, because this is the edge that was folded over, and you'll have one that has just a little bit of gathering, and this is where we made our seam and where we tied it off. And I prefer to have this piece facing towards the back of the carrot, and the nice straight edge where we folded is what's facing at the front. So I'll do that with both of them, pop them side by side, and then I'm going to take one of my tails and I'm going to stitch these 2 leaves together before I attach them to the carrot. Really quick, simple little stitches in and out. When doing this, you want to make sure that you are going in and out between, it'll be easier to see what I mean on this one, between the legs of a stitch. We don't want, is that in focus? Good. We don't want to be crossing our yarn over a leg, or else you'll see this sewing when you're finished. What we want to be doing is bringing our needle back in between the legs so that the yarn is hidden. I'll come back to the other side, come out between the legs of a stitch, and you'll see here you can't see where we just put in our little where our yarn went when we were stitching that. And again over here I'm going to go back in between the legs. This is just to hold the leaves together. It makes it easier when we are sewing. And I'm just going to make my way back to the other side. It makes it easier when we are sewing it onto the carrot. You don't have 2 fiddly leaves to try and sew on. Oops. You want to make sure that you don't split your yarn by coming through your yarn. Okay, I'm back over to my other side. Just tie those tails together. I want to hide this again, to hide these tails so I don't have the knots hanging out on the outside. And I'll show you a little trick I do, because if I tried right now to pop this really short tail back onto the needle, when I take my longish needle in, you'll see what happens. That tail comes off. So what I do is I put the needle back in, bring it through until just the eye of the needle is at the top. Put that short tail on, and then I can pull everything through. And I'm going to cut that. And we have our leaves now sewn together in the shape that we want for our carrot top. Now remember what I said, you have the side that you don't want showing at the front of your carrot, and then you have the side that you do. And we are now going to take that and pin it, and we have marked out the front of our carrot. We will pin it into place at the top of the carrot there. And you want to make sure that you are pinning it just directly over top of the closure. I'm just going from one side over to the other, just to hold it in place. Now that twisted a bit, so I'm just going to make sure that I'm happy. If I leave the carrot top in the position it's twisted itself into, am I happy with that? Do I have any seams showing? And I don't, so I'm okay with where that has twisted off from where I originally wanted it to be. Just pop that out for now. Take one of my longer tails. Go. And I will start at the back. And what I want to do is pick up from the top two legs of a stitch. You can see I have it there. Okay, but oh, that wasn't actually, there it is there. What I want to make sure I'm doing is that I'm not just picking up the top layer of the carrot, I am picking up both the top and the inside layer. So I guess that's the outside and the inside layer. If I have both layers when I'm doing this, it will just make it more sturdy and will ensure that if the leaves of the carrot get pulled, that they don't pull it all out of shape. So I've come through the legs of one stitch, and I'm going to come up to my carrot leaves here and go through the legs of a stitch up there. And I'm going to make my way all the way around the piece, going from the legs of one stitch on the carrot body and then up through the legs on the leaf. Sometimes you might find that you need to pick up more than one stitch at a time, and that is just fine. What you want to try to make sure you're doing is to stick to the same row, and this helps your work to be neat at the end. And when I've done a few stitches, I think that's enough, I'm just going to pull that. I'll pull my tail to bring it in, and then I will move to this side and continue making my way around. We have a golden retriever, and yesterday we took her on a new walk. It was really lovely. We have quite a few nature reserves near us, and we're very lucky. So we drove down to one of them. I'm going to pop this pin out now. I don't need that in anymore, and it will just snag my yarn. We always worry that because she's not yet 2, she'll be 2 soon. Beginning of September she turns 2. We always worry that she's going to be naughty, run up to other dogs. I mean, we have her on lead, but she's a really happy dog, and she's a golden retriever, and she thinks every dog and every person is her best friend, but she always surprises us. She behaves beautifully. So it was a really enjoyable walk, and I'm going to pop this pin out. And amazingly, there were no complaints from my children about having to walk too far. It was a really lovely day out. Our summer holidays are almost over here, so the children will be back at school in a couple of weeks. We go back a little bit later than I know some of you American viewers do. I don't know, it would feel odd. For me, I grew up in Canada and we went back at the beginning of September. It would feel odd going back during August. And then I have family in Australia, and they're in the middle of their school year. Anyway, my children will be back soon. So we are just trying to make the most of the last of our holidays. Here we are. Now, I have a few stitches of my leaf still to do, and I've made my way back around to my starting tail. So that's okay. I'll just continue picking up the same stitches on my carrot until I finish off the leaf, and then I will come back and meet up with that tail to tie off. There we are. Good. Oh, I think we should just pick up here on the carrot. There. Let's have a look. That's the back. And if we come round to the front, I think that looks quite good. Now let's take that tail and meet up with our starting tail. I'll just bring it through, making sure I'm not splitting any of my yarn as I go. I'm over now. And same thing as every other time, we're going to tie off our tails and then hide them in the work. And because I am working with green yarn, I'm going to bring my tails up through the leaf since I can, instead of bringing them through the carrot, just so that I don't see them. Go. Now the leaf. And you can see that knot there. And if I just give the tails a tug, that knot is gone. So let's cut them off. That's what we're doing when we are hiding our tails in our work. Okay. There is the front of my carrot with its leaves and the back. If you are making play food, this is where you can stop. But if you would like to embroider the face with me, then carry on. I just realized I didn't have my black yarn out on the table. This is a DK cotton. I quite like using it because it doesn't leave any little bits of lint. We are going to be using the same piece to embroider both the eyes and the mouth of the carrot. And so what you want to make sure is that you have a long enough piece. I think this is probably about 40 centimeters. I'm sorry to my American viewers. I don't know what that is in imperial. I grew up just using the metric system. And so I don't understand imperial measurements at all. Right, here we are, we're ready to go. This is the back of our carrot and this is our front. The first thing I want to do is identify the middle of the front, and I am going to pop a pin right down that column of stitches so I can see, and to make sure that my embroidery is being done evenly across both sides of my carrot. Take a pin, and what I want to do is first you decide where you want your carrot's face to be. Do you want your carrot's face to be up here at the top like I have in this example? Do you want your carrot's face to be down here at the bottom? I'm going to keep mine up at the top. I have this first column of stitches here, and I'm going to mark out, I'm going to jump over into the next column, and I'm identifying them because the V's, closer, the legs of the stitch which form a V are all in this direction. The V, the legs come together at the bottom, so we have a V. And I want to come over to the next column that looks the same, where the legs of the column come together at the bottom to form a V. I don't want to be working into this upside down V. So here I've jumped over one column, and I will pop the eye of the pin in to mark the eye, and I'm going to do exactly the same, sticking to the same row of stitches. Put a pin in on this side. And my eyes will be separated by just one space. You'll see that over here in this one. They're separated by just one space. Take your needle, and you are going to come from the back of your work out. I'm not coming through the center of that stitch, exactly where my pin is. I'm coming through just, let's move that out of the way so you can see, just beside the stitch, because I'm going to wrap my yarn around that stitch that my pin is inside of. Leave yourself a tail at the back for tying off, because when we are finished embroidering, we are going to come back through the carrot to that side. Now this is the stitch in which I'm going to wrap my yarn around to form the eye. Now, I'm going to do that about 4, maybe 5 times. You do it as many times as you like until you reach the thickness of the eye that you like. Maybe you just want to have a little eye like that. That's fine. If that's what you want to do, just hold off and wait for us. But I'd like my eye to be a little bit thicker. Making sure that whoops, I'm stuck on that pin. Make sure that each time you are going in and out of the same hole that you've come through, that you're working in. It's also important not to pull this too tight. If we pull this too tight, it will bring our stitch really close together, and it will cause a gap to form on either side of the eye, and it just won't look very neat. I think this is one of the tricky things about embroidering on knitting that you have to worry about, because the stitches are so loose. So you don't want to make your embroidery too tight. Now on this example here, I wrapped it around 6 times, and I really do feel it's a little bit thick. So I'm just going to wrap this one 4 times. So we've done 1, 2, 3 loops, and I'm going to come back in, but this time on my final loop, I am not going to come out on the other side. I'm going to bring my needle out and over. When doing this, you want to make sure you're going deep inside the carrot. If you skim along the top, skim along just the inside edge of those layers of your knitting, then you will see the black line going across. And so what you want to do is you make sure that you're deep inside your knitting. And I'm, just like before, going to come out on the other side of where I've marked off with that pin. And again, make sure you don't pull too tight. Right, I can pop that pin out. And I'm going to wrap this around. I wrap this one around. If you feel, sorry, I'm just going to say, if you feel that you've pulled it too tight, you can use your needle to loosen it up. This is the beauty that we haven't tied anything off yet. And just like with this one, I'm going to wrap around this stitch. I'm going to wrap around 3 times and then stop so that I can pin where my mouth is going to be placed. So here we go. Remembering, come in and out of the same point, the same hole each time. I have a really lovely follower, Kathy, who's very supportive. She showed me a picture of some cherries that she made, so I'm going to make a tutorial for that with her blessing. If you have any ideas of any fruit or veg that you'd like me to try, then pop that down in the comments and I will give it a think and see how I can create it for you. Here we go. We've come through 3 times. But don't suggest a pickle. A designer friend of mine and fellow YouTuber, it's weird to say YouTuber, but anyway, she has a pickle, and so I'm not going to make a pickle out of respect for her. Right, this eye I wrapped around 4 times. This one I've wrapped 3 times, and I'm pausing because I am now going to mark off where I'd like my corners of my mouth to be. And I like to have my mouth really nice and close to the eyes. I think it makes this cuter face. So I'm going to take, just like I marked with the eyes, I'm going to mark where along the center column, where the bottom of my mouth will be. And pop that one out. And I'm going to mark where the corner of each side of my mouth. Now if I look at that, my mouth will be nice and close, or do I actually want it to be right underneath? I think that's good where it is. Now that I have my mouth marked out, I can do the final loop of my eye, and this time, instead of coming back out over on this side of the eye, I'm going to come out down where one of my pins are. And I'm going to come out right through the middle of that stitch where my pin is marked. Make sure that I want it to loop underneath the eye there. There we go. Good. I can pop this pin out, and I'm going to make my way over and go into this pin here, which is the bottom of my mouth, and then up and out. And remember, go deep inside your work so that you don't see where your tails are when you're moving around inside, that they're not showing through the orange knitting. Come through here. I can take both of these pins out. And I'm just going to come right back in to the center, the bottom corner of my mouth, making sure I'm going in the same hole. And I'm going to bring my needle out right beside the tail where I started. Don't pull it too tight. You don't want to stretch out your embroidery on the front. I'm going to have a look. I think I'm just going to fix up this eye a little bit, make it look a little more puffy, not so rectangular. Fix this up. There we go. Doing this all before I tie off at the back and make sure I'm happy with my face. I think that's looking quite cute. I can come to the back and I'm going to tie a rather loose knot, because what I don't want to do is again pull my embroidery at the front out of shape. And like every other time, I will pop my tails back onto the needle and I will hide them inside the work so that I can get rid of the tail. Bring it out here at the back. Pull it through. Now, as you're doing this, it might pull the embroidery on the front, but that's okay, because we will just go back through. Oh, sorry. Not the arm of my camera. Because we will just go back through. There we go, it's hidden. Just give that a snip. We will go back through to the front and check our embroidery. There we go, I'll bring that away. Oh, I'm really happy with that. I think that's a very sweet looking carrot with its leaves and its little face. And now all that's left to do is to attach our little tag. Now you'll remember at the beginning of the video, I told you that I have a link down in the caption down there. And if you sign up through that link, I will send you a pack of 3 puns. This one isn't a pun, it's just a sweet little tag that says, I may be a tiny carrot, but I want you to know I believe in you. Go do your thing. But the other 2 in the set are puns, like, I cared a lot about you. But I've made those up for you so that you don't have to spend your time making tags. You can spend your time doing the fun part, which is making your carrot. By signing up to that link, you are signing up to my email list, and I will send out to you emails, not all the time, at the moment, they're once a week, and each of those emails have contained a link to the newest YouTube tutorial, as well as if there are any free PDFs that go along with it. So for example, the people who signed up last week will get an email this week with the link for this carrot tutorial, as well as the puns that go with it. So you don't have to keep signing up to get the puns. I will also send you from time to time discounts for my paid patterns in my Etsy shop, Erin Makes Designs. It's just a good way to keep up to date with all the things that I'm doing. So if you would like to sign up to that, you can find the link below. And here we are with your positive carrot. In addition to the positive carrot, I have a positive pineapple, a positive lemon, and a positive pea. If you'd like to make the positive pineapple tutorial, you can find its link here. Enjoy! Thanks for coming out to Erin Makes Designs.